Most people go through some pretty big changes between high school and college, but for my next guest, well, there is far more to the story. Harvard swimmer Schuyler Bailar posted this photo on Instagram last week. On the left is Bailar at his high school prom in 2014. On the right, Bailar at a friend's prom this year. Alongside the photos, he posted this message: change is possible. Happiness is possible. Authenticity is possible. But all of these things take time and effort and perseverance and self-love. So never forget this, my friends. Never give up on yourselves. A message which has since gone viral. In 2015, Bailar became the first openly transgender athlete in the NCAA to compete on a men's Division I team. And since sharing his story on 60 Minutes and The Ellen Show, he's become an outspoken advocate and was named to MTV's list of 2015's best moments for the trans community. Schuyler, it's great to meet you. Thanks so much for being here.
It's good to be here.
So as I said, you're all over the place. I mean, not only on social media, but I saw you on 60 Minutes, I saw you on your family, and I saw you on Ellen. Do you do this for you, or do you do this to help other people?
I don't do this for me. I think the biggest thing that I always say is I want people to know that I exist, but not me as in Schuyler Bailar, but me as a trans athlete. I want people to know that I am out, I'm happy, I can do what I love, and I can be who I am. Okay,
let's do a little history for a second. Okay. So it's fair to say you're world class, or pretty close. You're a big time swimmer. Can we say that?
I was competitive.
Okay, fine. Yeah. And so you're better than competitive. You commit to the women's team at Harvard, and then take it from there. What happened?
So I committed to the women's team at Harvard, and that was in September of my senior year in 2013. Throughout that year, I fell pretty deep into mental health issues. I had an eating disorder. I was depressed, and it got pretty bad, and I needed to get help. And so instead of starting that following fall at Harvard, I took a gap year, and I went to a treatment center for eating disorders. And it was there that I finally was able to find the reason for why I was so disconnected with myself, and I was able to say I'm transgender, and it was a pretty big revelation for me, but it was also it meant a lot because I'm an athlete, not only just because being trans is already contentious in this
And by the way,
world.
when you say it was a big moment for you, mean being out?
No, just realizing being trans.
But didn't you? I thought I've read you say that you were pretty convinced you were transgender when you were a little kid.
So I knew that I knew who I was and I knew who I am, but I didn't have the words to explain how I felt. So I didn't have the vocabulary. I called myself a tomboy religiously. I dressed exclusively in boys' clothing. There was nothing about me that was particularly female up until high school when I decided I had to fit in. But I didn't have the words to say this is who I am. So
you have this, I don't know if I'd call it epiphany, you have this moment, this thing, and then what happens? Because again, you've committed to the women's team at Harvard. What happens?
So I ended up just deciding to be honest with myself and with people around me, and I called the women's team coach, Stephanie Moraski.
How nervous were you when you made that phone call?
Surprisingly not nervous.
Why?
Because something about her made me think that I could trust her and that it would be okay, and I also was so tired of being so worried about what it would mean that I was just like, I just got to say it.
So what happened?
Called her, said, I'm working on some gender stuff, and she asked me, what does that mean? And I said, I think that I'm transgender. All I know is that I want to swim. And she said to me, Schuyler, we recruited you. We love you. The team loves you. I love you. If you want to swim, we're going to make this work.
And so you're still on the women's team,
right? So at this point, I'm still going to be swimming for the women's team. And as the year kind of went on, this is my gap year. We talked a lot about what it meant about what it meant to be on the women's team, what it meant to be me, what I wanted that to mean in the world. And it became pretty clear that I was going to be sort of living this dual life of being a woman in the pool but a man in school, which was kind of ridiculous.
Pretty good line, I should say.
I've said it once or twice. Yeah. So. Through that process, she was like, okay, this is ridiculous, and she was never pushing me one way or the other, but she went and talked to the men's coach and just asked him, what do you think about the situation? And Kevin's the men's coach at Harvard, and he said, okay, so you have a kid who identifies as male, who's a swimmer, who's going to go to Harvard, and I have a men's swimming team at Harvard. Why doesn't he swim for me? And that's a pretty logical, I think, thing to say if you go by what I just said. But if you think about Harvard, you think about Division I sports, you think about men's sports, you just think about the climate of this country. That's a pretty amazing proposition.
And you're accepted, I've read, by your teammates, the coach. Really, is it weird? I mean, I've seen photographs of you. I mean, you're swimming in a suit where your whole body is exposed, which you'd never done before. I know it's a little thing, but is it a little thing, or is it like, oh my God kind of moment?
The first time I wore a men's swimsuit, it was definitely a nerve-wracking moment. There were also some new sensations, both mentally and physically, because I hadn't had those parts of my bodies exposed. But I think I've always been very comfortable, which this is ironic with the whole eating disorder and being trans thing, but I've always been very comfortable with my body in the water. Like, I've always been comfortable in a swimsuit, and it's not actually that much more naked to not have the top cover that it it has been
You
before.
know, I know a decent number of trans people. I've interviewed a number here. I would say almost without exception, everyone has said as a condition for the interview, don't talk about, I will not talk about me prior to transitioning. I will not under any circumstances show photographs of me before transitioning. Why have you made a different decision?
I think, first of all, it's really important to note that every trans person has a different experience and a different way of captivating their experience. But for me, it's so important to show my journey, and I consider my history, my own story, very rich. And I think it informs a lot about who I am today and who I will be and who I have been. And I never want to forget parts of who I am.
You've taken any crap from others in the trans community for this decision, or no?
No. I think there's a lot of trans people who like to show comparison pictures because it also can captivate their journey. But it also sensationalizes it. And that's the thing that I said about the picture that you're talking about that went viral was part of the post says, note that this picture is not everything. Like, it is not man and woman. My journey is more than that.
Okay, so you were competitive. You're better than competitive. You're not better than competitive. I mean, you're a swimmer, and you're a talented swimmer. How's that transition for you from being the first one to touch the wall to someone who doesn't touch the wall first? You finish.
Yeah, it's important to recognize that it's different, and I think the sports psychology piece is really more of I'm swimming because I love it, and I'm not swimming because I'm necessarily winning everything. But I don't suck, you know. I'm not a terrible male athlete. I am not on the top of the Ivy League.
But is that hard? I mean, you have to be wildly competitive to be as good as you were. Is it hard to?
Yeah. Do I hate losing? Yeah. You know, do I lose a lot more? Yeah. But that only fires me up more to beat myself, you know. And it's a different paradigm. I am working more to beat myself and to beat maybe the last guy instead of the first guy, you know. But that doesn't mean I hate swimming. It doesn't make me love the sport any less.
Schuyler, what's your message? You've been, I don't know if I can use the word lucky, but I will. And if you want to disagree with me, I'm not saying you didn't have a difficult time.
Yeah.
Incredibly accepting and loving family from what I read and see. Your teammates at Harvard, your classmates, your coaches, your all this. What do you say to the trans kid who's had a hard time, whose family's not accepting, whose classmates, co-work, what do you say to that person who's gone through this?
I think the biggest thing that people need to do is find community somewhere, and that can be online. Like, Instagram is the place that I first found community before I told people about it. Yes, I have accepting people once I told them, but I felt very alone initially, and I found a lot of internet communities. I found a lot of people that I could just talk to or just see that made me feel a little bit less alone, and I think that's so important. I truly believe that everybody has somebody in their life that they can find community, kinship with, and I think that's really important.
Keep swimming and keep doing what you're doing. Schuyler,
Thank you.
It's great
Thanks
to
for
meet
having
you.
me.
Thanks so much.